So we are aboard the USS Harry S. Truman, a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier that's based out of Norfolk, Virginia. And we're watching as F-18s are launched off this aircraft carrier. And I thought today we could have a conversation about performance under pressure, because it's something that the United States Navy and their pilots seems to excel at. So the issue isn't so much about launching aircraft as it is this: having the aircraft land back on the aircraft carrier. An aircraft that's almost 54,000 pounds, traveling about 150 miles an hour, then has to approach on a moving ship and catch a small wire. And in fact, it's been actually said that these landings are actually even more stressful to the pilot than actual combat missions. Let's take a copy out of the United States Navy's playbook and explore such topics as confidence, mastery, competence, and performing under pressure. To understand the technical skills that the U.S. Navy pilots encounter when it comes to landing on an aircraft carrier, here's some of the component skills that they have to go through. Obviously, the ship unto itself is actually moving, so it's actually pitching and rolling, and it is also traveling in its own direction as well too. So they have actually 3 or 4 wires that you can see strung across the back of the deck, and then they have a small tail hook on the back of their aircraft that engages these wires and brings the aircraft to a stop in about 2 seconds or so. And in the top right-hand picture, you actually see what's known as a Fresnel lens, and this is a system of lights that is orientated in such a way that the aircraft follows the beam of light. The pilot uses those lights on the side of the ship to gauge his angle, so that when he lands, he doesn't land into the back of the ship, as you can well see, or overshoot the landing area. And this is initially practiced. Most pilots spend over 40 landing attempts on dry land on a runway that is painted and orientated like an aircraft carrier deck. And every single landing that a pilot makes is critiqued by what's known as an LSO, or a landing safety officer. So complex actually is landing on the back of these aircraft carriers that a pilot will make almost or up to 300 corrections. That is, to his rudder pedals and to his throttle and to his steering control stick, over 300 of them in the last 18 seconds of flight. It is that complicated. Is there any repercussions for failure? Absolutely. So when you think of it, obviously killing the pilot if he lands in into the back of the ship, not to mention crashing a multi-million-dollar aircraft into a multi-billion-dollar aircraft carrier. And he's not the only one trying to land. So if he crashes and causes an incident, there's other aircraft that are also, running out of fuel, perhaps of battle damage, that also are counting on being able to land in the middle of an ocean with no other land. So the stakes are in fact very, very high. So here's where I'm kind of going with this. Naval pilots, naval aviators, and the military and athletes rarely seem to lack confidence. All right. But paramedics, now we work in a really stressful must-win situation as well too, both in scenarios and as street paramedics. We don't seem to have sometimes just as much confidence exuding from us as these other professionals. So what's going on here? And confidence is in fact one of the leading complaints that I've gotten from students over the years, is that they finish a program or during a program, they're like, George, I just don't have any confidence. And this is definitely worth exploring. So there's a couple concepts we need to kind of delve into first. One is about the definition of what confidence even is. So if we're going to be talking about lack of it, what are we talking about? Confidence is a belief, that innate sensation and feeling that you can actually even achieve a specific results. And it shouldn't be confused with self-esteem. So self-esteem is a little bit different. This is in your overall self-worth. So for example, I can actually have high self-esteem but low confidence. So I can say, George, I feel that I'm a worthy individual, that I bring a lot to this world, but I definitely don't feel confident that if you were to put me into the cockpit of an F-18 right now, that I could land it. And so many of you as students are in this category. You have high self-esteem, high self-worth, but low confidence and abilities. Low confidence in your abilities as a paramedic student. Can you do a medically facilitated or a rapid sequence intubation? Can you pull off a full head-to-toe trauma assessment and transport a load and go patient, whatever that might be? Some of you watching this right now and participating have low self-esteem and low confidence. So this is where not only do you not believe that you can even accomplish the skills and tasks within the paramedic program, but you don't even believe in your own abilities in accomplishing this, and that you're not even necessarily even worthy of it. And that's a dangerous place to be. That's a very unhealthy place to be. And I'm not criticizing. If this sounds a bit like you, then thank you for joining our course, because that's what my entire course is designed to do, is to try to help people when it comes to their self-esteem, self-confidence, and self-worth by focusing back on our ownership. So we need to kind of keep that in mind. Now, I need to say something here, is that I'm usually a huge advocate and proponent of ownership, and you normally don't see me making excuses, but I absolutely believe that as a student, you may not actually be in an environment that even breeds self-confidence and self-esteem. And this is what I'm getting at. Many organizations, many paramedic training organizations, hold to the minimum industry standards. All right. So you actually might be on an EMT or a BAA or PCP course that has a 60% or even a 50% pass mark for its students. And it may only be a few weeks or a few months long. You may only do 2 or 3 scenarios per module. So for example, you might only do 3 scenarios for cardiac, and then you move on to medical emergencies. You might do a final trauma scenario, and then you're into obstetrics and pediatrics. And as well-meaning as your paramedic training organization is, whoever that is that's teaching you right now, most of them are simply trying to get you to the base, lowest common denominator level of competency. And you're going to hear terms that your paramedic training school is accredited or complies with national standards. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret here. These aren't nearly as rigidly enforced as you'd like to think. In fact, I would probably bet in whatever country that you're in right now listening to this, that your country probably scrutinizes meat products in your grocery store way more than the program quality and consistency that you're currently attending right now. And again, I'm not trying to pass blame here, but when you compare this to, for example, the United States Navy, training its fighter pilots, they do intensive training. All right. They invest in their pilots. And I'm going to say that your paramedic school doesn't do the exact same thing. So, for a pilot to do, over 40 practice landings just on that one particular skill, how many of us as paramedic students did 40 scenarios? 40, for example, 40 cardiac scenarios. All right. I won't lie to you. If I did 40 cardiac scenarios, of course, my paramedic course would be probably like 5 years long. But I won't lie to you. If I had that much training and repetition, I bet you that I'm going to feel a lot more confident in my own abilities. Want some other proof? Look at our athletes. Look how much time and energy and singular focus they put into just sheer volume of practice as well too. And when I say volume, it's also good practice. And as paramedic students, we get sometimes just the absolute barest minimum. And so where I'm going with this is that sometimes, well, yes, we absolutely have to take ownership for ourselves within our own program. I also think we, in many ways, are being hampered by paramedic training that just hits the basics, that doesn't make a concentrated effort to take us from lack of confidence to confidence.